All right, good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, July 15th, 2021, and we're looking at the S&P 500 futures market here. We're going to get started with our pre-market analysis. Just some basic announcements here. Remember that today we do have our study session at 9 a.m. Pacific. There's a lot of great material to cover for this week. And it seems like the theme is going to be multi-time frame setups specifically. Remember, we have gone through and focused on fibs one week. We focused on scalping with the 512 chart. This week happens to have a lot of really good multi-time frame setups to cover. So you don't want to miss that. Also, this morning we are starting a little bit earlier because a majority of you are signed up for the July training with Ephraim, and he's going to be doing a live trading session today at 6:15 Pacific. So what we're going to do here this morning is do our pre-market analysis just a few minutes early, and then at 6:15 we're going to jump over to the July training, and assuming that that ends before 8 a.m. Pacific, we'll go ahead and meet back here and continue to trade until 8 a.m. and then take our hour break and then come back at 9 a.m. for the Thursday study session. So this morning it looks like we have Powell speaking right in about 35 minutes from now. And there were some news right around 5:30 Pacific. Didn't seem to have any effect. At least not as much of an effect as the PPI and the CCI from earlier this week. Or I'm sorry, the CPI and the PPI from earlier this week. So let's go ahead and jump into our pre-market here. As usual, our quarterly and our monthly looking strong. No signs of exhaustion up here. And then on our weekly, yesterday looked a lot stronger, but then we did have a little bit of a pullback here since the test of the all-time high. And so this candle does look a little bit ambivalent right now. We do have all of today and all of tomorrow before this closes. So at right now, still no signs of exhaustion, just the candle itself looks a little ambivalent. So let's go down to our daily, and this is where we get our bearish indication so far off of that all-time high that we made yesterday at 84.50. If any of you remember from yesterday, that 84.50, remember we pushed in, and 83.75 was that previous daily high. And we said that we had to get above 83.75, break above it, and hold there in order for there to be any kind of bullish case, because everything looked pretty bearish off that 83.75. And sure enough, we came right up, we broke it by about a point, and we tested it a second time, and that's where I told everybody we have a 10-minute all the way down to a tick chart bearish indication, and then from 84.50, we basically sold off all the way into the overnight session here. So this previous daily bar looking very bearish, and right now this current bar has all of the rest of today to develop, so nothing else to be said here on the daily. On our 4-hour, there's that bearish indication up there at 84.50. Remember, this happened just after the open, so when that 7 a.m. 4-hour bar closed, we already had a pretty clear bearish indication there to agree with some of the shorter time frames that we were looking at. And so right now, the only thing I'm noticing is off the overnight low, there's an argument to be made for a bullish divergence. So these are the two things we're seeing here on the 4-hour. And when we go down to our hourly, I went ahead and I put in a fib here for the entire leg. So from July 8th low to the all-time high we made yesterday at 84.50, we basically are right here at a 38% retracement. And you can see on the hourly as well, maybe somewhat of an argument here for a bullish case off the overnight low. We don't see it on the daily, we see it on the 4-hour, and we see it on the hourly. But as we dial down, we're not going to see as much agreement from here. So because we do have a 4-hour and an hourly indication, but we're not going to see it on some of the shorter time frames, I don't have a lot of faith that that means that that is a good indication that we found the low and we're going to bounce out of here. Doesn't mean we're not going to bounce out of here, but right now, because we don't have a strong enough signal on multiple time frames, it's going to make it hard to have faith that that's the low. So let's jump down to our intermediate time frames here and take a look at the 30-minute. And so the 30-minute here, you know, I like to kind of iron things out, and when I have divergences, I try to kind of filter out anything. You could argue, again, if you wanted to, from this previous low here, this swing low to the current swing low, you could say there's divergence. However, we got divergence here from this low to this low, right? So when price came from here and came down just a few ticks to here, we got the divergence off this swing low on RVI. So typically when I get that kind of divergence from here, I then no longer am looking from this low, I'm now looking over here. And so if I kind of filter things out like that, there's no divergence from that low to that low. We just have a low going to a lower low, RVI from this low going to a lower low, not necessarily a strong indication. Outside of this little thing we're talking about off the overnight low, there is right now somewhat of a bearish argument off of the current high at 34.57. And so we'll have to watch this. We didn't necessarily see anything like that on the hourly. So let's see if the 10-minute has any agreement there. You can see on the 10-minute here, no bullish divergence here off the overnight low, right? So like I said, pretty much maybe a 60-minute and 4-hour indication, and then no other corroboration down there. Now you can see from 43.57 here, this 10-minute also agrees with the 30-minute for the bearish case up near, interestingly enough, our important level at 57.75. So, you know, price came up, made a, you know, kind of a small time frame double top, if you want to call it that, and it got a bearish indication on the 30-minute and the 10-minute. And so now we're getting a little bit of a pullback here. And just curious to jump to our 3-minute. So our 3-minute also did have that bearish indication. So if I could just kind of wrap things up here for this morning, and I kind of neglected to, on my intermediate time frames, go back to this previous daily high. Remember that on the 60-minute, the 4-hour, and on the daily, we had bearish indications from up here. When we go down to our intermediate time frames, we also had a bearish indication from up top here. And you don't see it marked, but you can see a push to a higher high up to 84.50 and a push to a lower high here on RVI. So we have, again, from the daily all the way down to the 30-minute so far, bearish indications from that high. And then on the 10-minute, same exact situation, bearish indication. So, and we could probably even go all the way back down to the 3-minute, and you would see up here off that high a number of bearish indications that the divergence analyst identified there. And so we have a preponderance of bearish indications off the high, and this almost feels like Groundhog's Day here. Similar situation to what we had when we came into the market yesterday, which was a preponderance of bearish indications off the all-time high at the time. And so we needed to break through that level and hold above it in order to really expect any type of continued push higher. And then what happened, remember yesterday, we pushed up, we broke through 83.75 by 3 ticks, got all the bearish indications. I did warn everybody, we had clear bear signals to take it short, and then had the sell-off, and then continued to sell off here into the overnight session. So if this is going to continue to carry through, we will probably end up breaking this low here, because I don't have strong indications of a bounce from the overnight low. So that's kind of our case for the morning. A lot of bearish indications from the previous daily high, and not necessarily a strong confluence of bullish signals off of the overnight low here. So it's a much more bearish look this morning. Of course, if we can continue to push somehow out of the open here and come up and break through the all-time high and get through it, then that whole bearish picture will be negated. But that's kind of what we have for the morning here. And remember, in about 15 minutes, a bunch of us are going to be jumping over to the July training with Ephraim, and then we'll be back to trade until 8 a.m. and then we'll take our break and come back for the study session at 9 a.m. So that's where we'll leave it for this morning.